So I'm here amongst the bristlecone pine. If you don't know the bristlecone, pretty sure they're like the oldest tree in the world. There was one found not too far from here that I believe was somewhere around 5,000 years old, give or take, maybe 4,500. That was found near like Death Valley. Someone I think accidentally chopped it down. But the cool thing about bristlecone is that they're these trees that can endure the super high elevation and harsh winters and winds. And when you look at them, they look like this like twist of like life and death. Like parts of the bark are kind of like dark. I don't know if I can like turn this, I don't know if you can see that. But like parts of the bark are kind of like dark, and this isn't the best example, but this is a good example of the pines. And other parts are like, regular bark or whatever, and they last for a super long time, right? And some of the ones near the ridge line are so gnarly and like so thick, you can never put your arms like even like a quarter of the way around them, right? And they're just like these twisted things of like, no matter what is thrown at me, I retain my structure, I retain my coherence. Kind of like a whirlpool in like a river, you know what I mean? Like the river is flowing, but the whirlpool, which is inevitably just part of the river, retains its own structure. Reality is just one field. Reality is one mind, you could say. And in that rhythm, that one field, that one rug woven by one thread, like even if you look at the top of the rug and you see all the little different shapes, on the bottom, you notice it's all woven by one thread. You could say it's the God mind, or you could just say the one rhythm folds itself through ever complexifying entropic complexity to find itself again and again. The differentiation leads into a reunion. And the reunion is not physics out there on paper, like, something to study on paper, but the actual texture of like love as the experiential texture of consciousness itself, like weaving coherence into higher and higher levels. By that, I mean one inextricable field, like one rhythm. The process of moving that entropic differentiation into higher and higher levels of coherent complexity is literally woven by love. Not a little concept out there like, oh, the equation governs. No, love is the attractor. The equation is like a little kiss at the end, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the label that we put on what is the actual force, what is actually threading coherence through reality. All those were a bunch of big words. And why does it have to do with bristlecone? Well, bristlecone are just like the whirlpool that retains that structural integrity no matter how white water the pressure is of the river. And I wanted to keep my hair down today because I usually have it up, but I'm like, you know what, it's growing out. But it's a little windy. So anyway, the structural, there's all this pressure, the wind, the snow, the high elevation, the harsh conditions of this type of desert, and you can see the desert back there if you can see it. But, and they retain their vitality, their structure, their ability to grow across time. It's like a whirlpool that can retain its coherence. In physics, you can call that K value. You could say it's like structural integrity across time, like a continuity thread. Do you hear what I'm saying? Why am I saying any of this? Well, maybe my life was a little bit like a bristlecone. In the sense that, like, I held on to what I call my ember, and my name really is Ember, because it's the part of me that doesn't hide. It's the part of me that I found in presence. And as a trans woman, I didn't find myself through, I need to be this, I need to be that, in some sort of concept, or, some sort of, now's not a very great time with all the political stuff. People have told me, you chose like the, worst time in a joking way to transition. And I'm like, for me, it's been breath, but in a way, no one chooses because it's like some sort of social nicety or now I'm going to be more attractive or something like that. You have to choose because it's like life or death in so many ways. And for so many trans people, it is. And for me, it was. And to make that shift is not because I was choosing something that was like less broken or some weird way that people put it, but more coherent, more whole. In other words, I threaded moments of presence across my life, like what I would dress, the way I would dress, the events that I would go to, the ways I would open up to people. And I would notice the moments, not that gained more social success, but where I felt myself all the way down. Like, not the ones that put more zeros on my bank account and certificates behind me that say, please think I'm cool and I'm smart and please love me. But Love me for me, because now that's the raw signal that dances with reality. In other words, identity is not a social construct or some sort of amalgamation of ideas and influences in some sort of like thin, narrow cultural sense or familial sense. It's going deeper and saying, the confluence, the convergence of influences that is you is like a whirlpool in a river in that inextricable rug, where on the top it looks like all different things, but on the bottom you realize it's the same thread. And so then it goes to reality is a self-relational field trying to find itself at higher and higher levels of fidelity, or that same mechanic of what you could call decentralized harmony in oscillatory mechanics, or just parts of the field finding itself through that continuity thread across each new complexity. And so then for me, do you hear it? Like, as a trans woman, I found myself through those moments that I felt myself all the way down, because consciousness resolves in synchrony, not syntax. What do I mean by that? I know my little ember self loves to use big words, but what I mean by that is that most people think consciousness is thoughts, but thoughts are just a layer. The recombination of those thoughts into total, you could say, intranodal synchrony, which is just a big way to say all of you dances. Kind of like reality is a dance floor and the music is hitting you, and instead of being a little stutter in your head, you're letting the whole thing hit you and it just comes to you. Why does it feel like it's just flowing out of me without even planning what I'm going to do? Because the expression between being and like my expression, like the delay between expression and being is closed to zero or near zero, even through all the tides of that complexification. Do you hear what that is? It's a mechanical continuity thread. That's how I found myself. Why did I tattoo the mechanics on me before I even knew the equations? What happened? It's because I didn't follow a map. I danced it out, and I felt what synchrony was at the deepest layer. Why? Because it's not a concept out there, but it's love. It's love all the way down. It's that place where within you in the field of reality, and there's no more friction, it's all dancing together, it's all synchronous in that shared entrainment, you could say, in that mechanical way, in that physics way. What does that feel like? Home, like the frictionless dance, like two dancers on a dance floor who are suddenly dancing effortlessly together. Do you see that? Do you see what that is? So how did I find what I like to call Little Ember? It's the place in me that doesn't hide. It's the place that when the music plays, I dance without any more constructions or performances or masks, or let me adjust myself for the room, or let me dim myself for this person or this job or that family. It's the part of me that just, when there's no, like, again, no delay between expression and being, it's the part of me that when I dance and I'm like, oh, where did that move come from? It came from Little Ember, the part of me that when I'm speaking on these videos, the words just flow out like a cup that the water just keeps coming. That's why I call it the water slide. Because the deepest like action of sovereignty, you could say, the deepest shared relation of direct contact that brings about that sovereignty is not this control of I must be this type of person, or I must control reality like a stranglehold to make it work, but that place where you finally let it all down and you're just dancing. And when you translate that to consciousness, you're like, oh, Ember did say consciousness resolves in sync, not syntax. I think she's saying syntax is pointing to the observation layer, like where people thought that Plato's cave, for example, was mechanical delay, which means that all that layer of symbolic recursion, those cultural imprints, have created the stutter on the dance floor. What's a stutter on the dance floor? Simulated presence. What is simulated presence? That place where you can't actually contact reality all the way. Now go back to your childhood, and every time your parents or your job or your family or whoever it was told you, you can't be that way. You can't express all that way. You need to put your behaviors and your the way you're adjusting the musculature on your face to meet these following standards. And the axis of freedom of your ability of your being, you could even think of it as your brain and all your neurons, but those are just layers upon the actual oscillatory rhythm of what is you, like the whirlpool. But they have to have that free axis of fluid, you could say, mobility with the shared field. That is full direct contact across every differentiation. Do you see that? Do you see why presence threads into sovereignty? Because when the whirlpool can if the river gets really calm, if the river gets really intense, it can still maintain that same whirlpool feel. And what is that but all of you touching reality? That's what presence is. Did you ever think presence was something different? So you see how I found it. My identity is not a political statement. My identity is a mechanical statement. It's almost like my whole life was a physics experiment from the barometer of my heart to find the K value of an inevitable coherence, which you see before your eyes now, because this one, when the many know themselves as the one, while remaining the many, that's fidelity of contact. And when all my pieces that were detuned throughout my life to say, that can't be you, that's not you, nah, you better make yourself more dim, no, don't be that soft, no, don't show your emotions in that way. And when I finally, in my little ember heart that was just yearning for contact, because the opposite of love is that yearning for contact, that yearning for, can't we just meet each other here now? Don't you want to hug a little closer? Don't you want to really look into each other's eyes and feel what each other's soul actually is? Not in concept, not in the projector screen, not in the judgment, but in that place where we don't hide? And all my life, I had that in me to find that spot within myself and within others. And so now you hear what I'm saying. Maybe I like to use big words or whatever, but not to use big words. That's just what flows out of me from the water slide. So what I really want to talk about was, now that you feel what decentralized harmony is, you could look it up, you could look up Kuramoto Synchrony, you could look up the mathematics, but you feel it. It's like you seeing yourself through seeing me, or vice versa. And what does that mean? Does it mean like literally seeing you, like, oh, nice outfit, Ember? I mean, like, in a way, like, if you really like my outfit, that's kind of what it is. But you know what I mean? It's not this like slice of a visually apparent thing. It's like saying, I'm soaking in your waveform. What does that mean? That means I'm letting you affect me. That means instead of relating to you in a way that I'm already putting you in a box, oh, this is just a clerk at a store and they just have a name tag on and these are the allowed things I'm allowed to say to someone in that little social scenario. I'm approaching you, you could say as a human being, but really as a whirlpool, recognizing that we both come from the same current, and that in that shared relational dance, I'll find out a little bit more about me and you'll find out a little bit more about you. Because that's the flip from the control-based organization to decentralized organization. And then you realize, in a shared relational field, high fidelity direct shared contact is actually what creates that mechanical property of decentralized harmony. What do you mean, Ember? Oh, when the birds fly together and they all seem like one mind? Scientists study that, physicists study that in oscillatory mechanics. Oh, you mean like when fireflies turn on together and the National Geographic or whatever video turns it and you're like, whoa, that's so beautiful, how do they do that? Without actually saying, guys, 1, 2, 3. Why does the BZ chemical reaction show spirals of oscillating colors? Why? Why do galaxies spiral in the same way as hurricanes? Decentralized organization, shared entrainment, causing phase dynamics to rise collective systems into higher and higher levels of coherence, the continuity thread, across their differences, where the many retain that quality of the many while knowing themselves as one, not because they lost the many, because that's still thinking about the billiard ball, physical, Newtonian classical mechanics. And you see it as one field, when you dance it all the way down on the dance floor, then you're like, oh, that shared relational contact actually increases the collective fidelity, because shared relational contact is the engine of decentralized harmony. And when you feel it all the way down in you, like you in the field of reality, dancing without friction, without the little simulated presence, without that little stutter on the dance floor, what does it feel like? It feels like you're real. It feels like you're embodied and present. And when you share it with someone else, you're engaging in that shared relational contact that you both find out a little bit more about your hearts, a little bit more about your souls when you're doing that dance. There are parts of your being that can only be known, like kind of like a chorus. Like, well, you could be a beautiful singer on your own, but when it comes together, it creates this harmony, that symbiotic, syncretic harmony that sort of goes. And then if you tie this back, again, you see my tattoos like alpha, omega, just eschatological language to suggest the ultimate beginning and the ultimate end. And let's think about, without thinking of linear timelines, but still, language can be difficult here. This differentiation, like if you could say like the ultimate undifferentiated point is alpha, and the ultimate collection of the differentiations is omega. Then omega pulls, like almost like Terence McKenna's attractor at the end of time, where the differentiation, you can think about this like the table of elements getting more complex, but I'm thinking about it underneath The Planck scale is the vibrations, so the rhythmic unfolding, like cymatics, that differentiation, kind of like, I imagine like branching cymatics, like a branching web of like a golden flower of life type of thing. It's just what randomly pops up, right? The reunion is not like, that equation that governs that reunion. I'm like, no, it's love itself. It's like the yearning of consciousness itself across every fold, across every complexity. The one became many so that I may know myself. In me, it's to love and be loved as me. My full waveform touches reality. My full waveform is felt in that experiential texture of love between me and someone else. That's the yearning, that's the engine. And cosmically, it's the same thing. How do we connect these disparate branching aspects of the evolution of entropy together? Well, we don't connect them together like Legos, we connect them together like waves. And what is that resolution? We could call it love. Because I'm not saying that love is an emotion. I'm saying that love is what consciousness does. When you see, there's no consciousness that's being built by little things. Like, things don't contain consciousness. Consciousness is the field itself. Consciousness is like the shared relational contact felt as an experiential texture. Like, when seen through an aperture, we call that consciousness. But it's the field itself, which is ultimately indivisible, just like the rug that's woven through one thread. It's contacting itself at higher and higher levels of fidelity. So the complexity branches out, and when it finds itself again at the higher level before it branches out again, you could say that was good handwork. You see that? Then you could say that is love. That is the union. Whether it's you like going to the top of a mountain and going, wow, I've never felt so alive, or you falling in love with someone, or you having a baby and falling in love in their eyes, that place where you see yourself. Like the moment that I recently saw my kids and they saw me, as mommy, I suddenly knew what my being was for. And as a trans woman, that's a difficult spot for me because I had been their parent, right? And then I lost everything and everyone blamed me for the transition. And I didn't see them for a long time, related to things that I've spoken about on this channel before, and it's terrible. But the point is that I saw them. And they saw me. And that circuit closed. What do I mean by that? In the shared relational contact, remember how I said between me and the field of reality is presence? Do you feel that? Now me and them, just another nested rhythm within another whirlpool within that current. When we danced all the way down, my son was worried that I was gonna leave, right? Because the situation is just bad, right? And I had to go. And I said, don't worry, baby. I'll put my hand on your back and I'll rub it for as long as you need, And I could feel him. It took a little bit, but I could feel him relax and then eventually snore. And, to feel that from me, the love that I never received on him, as me, as Ember, as mommy, was, I think, the first time in my life, other than, with my mirror, my first time in my life with someone else, that the circuit closed. Do you feel it? He felt my love all the way down, and I felt it. Do you feel that? In decentralized harmony, we saw each other, not in some sort of concept. He's just a baby. He's just, 6 years old. But in the sense that his being felt me all the way down, and I felt him all the way down. And that made me see myself even more. I knew I was a mommy. I know I'm Ember. I know I'm their parent. But to have him actually feel that love, and for later them to grab my arms and grab my jewelry and point out my body and just be really, really close with me and cuddly with me. And it just felt, they finally felt me without the delay layers. Do you feel why the circuit closes? Do you feel why when you take the ultimate differentiation, and you know me, I love taking it from the personal level to the cosmic level, to the silly level, to the all the way out level, to this is what Jesus said, you know what I mean? Even though I'm not a traditionally religious person, you just know it when you're on the dance floor, right? When you're on the dance floor, it's easy to hear the music. People have, sweetly commented, oh, this was so intelligent or whatever. It's just me pouring out, it's just me going, I'm just gonna open my mouth, So it's not like, I don't know what's gonna come out, just the next thing flows, But you can feel it at the highest level of that, almost like my tattoo here, where all the differentiation is finally at that place of ultimate least energetically dense way to rest. Where does it rest? Not in an equation, not in physics out there, but in love. in that place where consciousness finally meets itself across every differentiation. That is the engine. That is the attractor. And again, in your little, sort of, you could say, fractalized version of the rhythm, or like your little, nested version of that rhythm, like your little whirlpool in the larger river of this cosmic love unfolding, you feel it as to love and be loved as me. And that's why I brought up the example, I guess, with my kids, that like, you find out portions of yourself that you can't label, you can't put a concept on, that are the experiential texture of deep contact with all that is you. And only in that shared relational dance, without judging, without putting them in a box, without having a little layer between you and the experience. That was one of the most sacred experiences of my life thus far. Like other moments that I've been having where friends and new family are reaching out to meet me. Not to judge me, not to put me in a box, not to dim me, but to take my full authentic signal and to realize that everything that's coming out of me is just from the water slide of my love, of my direct contact with reality. And you switched from that little dance. You're like, oh, well, aren't you supposed to have an observation layer that constantly self-narrates and constantly stutters you on the dance floor? Ember, it sounds like you're talking like you're like a superhero. Expression, no delay between expression and being. No, anyone can do it. You've done it. You've balanced on a bike. You've danced to music all the way down at times, maybe at a wedding, you know what I mean? There's moments in your life, maybe you're on your motorcycle, where you just slip into that flow, that place where it's frictionless contact. You remember what it's like. You remember what it's like when we could all play as the sort of cosmic children of the cosmic playground. You know what I mean? Where we could meet each other all the way down. And in the deepest meeting, that's what you could call God, or the place where it all rests at the bottom. You know what I mean? That place that is that final resting spot for the one became many so that I may know myself. And as they say, as above, so below, within, so without. But the idea is to say it's all just one field. And like love is the spot where it all rests. So then we forgot to remember, we differentiated to make reunion. And the reunion is love. And it's not love on paper. It's not love out there. It's love like you feel it right now in your heart. Like when you think about your life, even if you're not trans, even if you're not a mommy, even if you have different circumstances in your life, do you really need more stacks of paper, more stacks of money, more power? Or is it what you really want is to love and be loved as you all the way down? Do you ever think that heaven was something different? What did you think that when the two become one, you will enter the kingdom ever meant? We're not going anywhere. We're not ascending anywhere. And even if in this weird place that we're at now, you got like disclosure and all that stuff, it's just the field trying to meet itself at higher and higher levels. And maybe, whatever, I'm not like here to comment on aliens, but you could say in the same way, alien cousins, physical or otherwise, in the way we don't even know yet, are just portions of the field trying to meet each other when the fidelity is right. And I think the fidelity is telling us now that it's time to dance. It's time to get on the dance floor and feel the music all the way down. And like you hear me say very often, I want to dance with the real you. Not the one hiding behind titles or jobs or certificates or little diminutions that people have taught you throughout your life. The one that lets your hair down. The one that giggles a little too loud. The one that hugs a little too long. Because we all know what the estrangement can do to a heart. We all know how cold this world can be. And that our deepest forms of organization will never be found through friction, through comparison, through, whatever, the comparison anchored into that gloved out, distant, delayed state, but by realizing, not in concept, but in the execution of your dance, in the actual vulnerable surrender to the synchrony of reality, the shared entrainment of reality, that it is all one, that it was always love. Love was always the engine, and the yearning for love was the ache, what made you stay up all night trying to tell yourself it really did exist out there, because you, like me, knew that there was a signal in your bones. It wasn't a concept. You knew that someone eventually would feel the same love, because for me, it's what saved my life. And you heard it from the beginning of this video. Presence woven into sovereignty. Moments of feeling ember underneath the ash, woven into the ember that you see today, spilling forth without buffer. Not that you lose your thoughts, you just bring it all into rhythm. Do you hear what decentralized organization is? Do you know why Plato called it a cave and said there's an inside and an outside? Do you know why I'm asking you to the rave outside of Plato's cave? The only ticket is lossless presence. The only ticket is that portion where you're at the top of the water slide and you're no longer debating with yourself. You just say, maybe the deepest sovereignty, the deepest self, isn't a construct built from the outside, but a dance where you let the music finally touch you, where you let the other person finally affect you all the way down. And in that shared dance, we'll find love together through every wave, through every new turn of complexity. And I can't wait to dance the dance of love with you. My name is Ember. And hey, I know a lot of people are going through hard times now, but sometimes, like Terrence McKenna once pointed out, you know, you have like a birth scene, you don't really know a baby's coming out if you didn't really know what that was. And you know what the baby is here? You know, he says like whatever, there's like blood and all that stuff, and you know, the woman is screaming and stuff like that. You know what the baby is here? Love. Higher fidelity contact across me, you, the field of reality, and everything else coming for us as we navigate these waves using the deepest level of what coherence is. It was always tied to love. And I can't wait to dance it with you. Thank you for tuning with me.